The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is the
Dr. Doreen is an expert in autism.
Doreen Granpeesheh.
Dr. Granpeesheh.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is a visionary in the field of autism. Now you can ask her questions on Ask Dr. Doreen. Good morning and welcome to Ask Dr. Doreen. I'm Shannon Penrod and I'm here with the fabulous and wonderful Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh. I just realized I took my earpiece out and didn't put it back in.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, everybody. And good morning to you. You look so bright and sunny.
Thank you.
And I'm featuring myself in a 60s movie right now. So that's where we are. Good morning to all of you. We are live right now on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and a dozen other sites that Traven, our fabulous producer, is going to roll through for you in just a second. But what that means is the chat is open and you can be writing in right now and have a conversation in real time with Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh, who if this is your first time and you don't know who she is, I'm so glad you're here because she's such a joy and a treat. She is, I believe, the expert in the field of autism in our time or any time. She's been working in this field for more than 40 years, working with all kinds of individuals on the spectrum, from very young children, even sometimes before the diagnosis, because you are someone who can diagnose, right?
Yes.
And up through, school-age kids, teens, adults, and even senior citizens that you've worked with over more than 40 years. I know, she doesn't look like it, but she's been working in the field for over 40 years. So, there are many things that I love about this woman, but, certainly one of the things that has to be mentioned here is that she has a compassionate view and an individualized view of autism, that you see the person and that you are about making things fair for them as they learn. And being respectful of their learning style, but allowing them to learn, getting to the point where and believing that individuals on the spectrum can learn, because there's a lot of people out there who spout nonsense saying, this is who they are, how they are, and they're never going to be anything else, which I think is very limiting. But I also love that you see the entire community, the family and the allies around that individual, and have been working so hard to help those individuals, both through your work as a behaviorist and your work helping behaviorists to understand biomedical, but also through your wonderful charity, Autism Care Today.
Yes, thank you.
So thank you.
No, of
thank
course.
you.
And a lot of, I guess, who I am and how I see autism is just from what I've learned over the years from, I guess, both the family, the parents, and the children or adults themselves. A lot of, let's say 20, 25, 30 years ago, we had no understanding of the how our senses, or how the individual who has autism, how their senses might be affecting how they learn. And over time, of course, we've learned that.
Yes.
And so there are a lot of things that we've learned, and a lot of it has to do with what our kids or patients have told us, what the parents have told us, and you just have to listen.
And you do listen. You listen
Absolutely.
to the parents, you listen to the individuals, but I don't think you realize how rare that is. When someone is an expert in something,
crazy.
their ability to listen seems to be diminished. But not in your case. In your case, it seems to be heightened. In fact, you teased something on last week's show that I'm going to pin you down on a bit. Somebody asked you a question and you said that you're working on a new book.
Yeah.
Tell all of us, me included, what's happening with this.
Well, I'm super excited about this because, first I wasn't sure, and it's kind of like now come together and it is formed, and I'm seeking the title right now.
Okay.
I don't have a good title yet, but what I want to do is I want to write a book or I should say edit a book that is mostly, it will be, each chapter will be one individual and their parents. So it's kind of, I want to be able to tell the world about autism from the experience of the individual themselves and also the experience of the parents. Because I think, I guess I have two goals. One is to help parents who are just entering this world, because that is a lot of my compassion and sympathy comes to that population. Like that is the reason I stayed in this field, because I met parents when I was very young and at UCLA, and I just couldn't leave anymore. I was like, this is the group that I need to help for the rest of my life. I need to be here. So that's one thing. And I know, you know, like I know so many parents like yourself, Shannon, who are, who no matter, like your journey has been tough, but you are tougher, you know, and you have so much to give to the new families who are not yet tough, and they're terrified, and they don't know what it means, and they don't know what the journey is, and all of that. And so there's that aspect which I really want to pull out. So it's going to be interviews with the families, but also, as I said, there's so much stuff that I've learned just from our kids themselves, right? Like, not just sort of what's difficult for them. I mean, first of all, I've learned over the years that each of our kids has their own incredible strength. And I say kids, and I refer to, you know, one of my kids is in his 30s. You know what I mean? They're all adults now, but they were my kids when I treated them.
Well, you call your adult children that are your children kids as well. We need a new word for when our kids become adults, right? Because but we don't have it.
Yes. And so, but I've learned, and I continue to learn so much from them. First of all, in terms of the experience of autism, kind of like, you know, an example, you know, Andy, one of my kids, was the one that taught me that it was very, very hard for him to focus on the sound of language, because there were so many other sounds, like doors opening and closing, that were much louder for him or prominent, and he was more focused on those types of things and actively had to make himself listen to language. So those types of things to me are very, very important to know and learn. And then the other side of it is that I feel like some of you know, one of the beautiful, beautiful aspects of autism is just the pure, positive, wonderful nature of these individuals. Like, they're just wonderful, good human beings. And they are out to, you know, it's funny because with autism, when you're very young, obviously you're kind of very egocentric, and I don't mean that in a bad way, it's just that you don't see anyone else's perspective, right? And as you learn that, I feel that a lot of our kids who have now become adults are the exact opposite. They're like extremely cautious about people around them. They care about everyone. They don't, you know, they don't do the bad things that we do and take for granted, you know? They don't lie, they don't steal, they don't do those bad things. They just live good lives. They're good people, and all they're trying to do is just kind of the best they can with their lives. And I love that, and I want that story to come out, right? So that's what I'm hoping to accomplish is, you know, and I already have kind of a list of, I don't know, 15 kids that I just thought of, and I thought it would be lovely for families to have access to a book like that.
I think so too. So I'm looking forward to reading this. But are you looking for more people to do it? If somebody feels like are you looking for more people?
Absolutely. You know, that's a really good question, because these are all kids I've known, right, and their families on my current list. And I'm actually, as every morning I wake up and I'm like, oh, I should put him in too. You know, there's more kids, but absolutely, every journey is important. Now, I will say that the kids that I've selected are specifically kids who get to a point where they can communicate all of this stuff. So in some ways, these are like the success stories. They're the kids that have learned a lot and can communicate all of their strengths, weaknesses, struggles, obstacles in their lives, how they process the world. That's abstract stuff. So it's not, unfortunately, I won't be able to put in here. Maybe there's one child I'm thinking about who communicates in a different way, and maybe I could get her feedback. But I'm looking, these are relatively kids who have now become very high functioning or completely recovered. So, but I would always be very interested in talking to people who want to present their story.
Okay. Wonderful. So I want to say, and Traven went through and showed all of you the different ways that you can connect with the show and different ways that you can watch the show. This show is available in podcast. And if you want to get the audio only and take it walking or hiking or whatever, you can absolutely do that. Traven showed that to you. Excuse me, and forgive my minor coughing fit. But also, if you want to watch any of the past episodes, because we have now been doing Ask Dr. Doreen for 12 years.
Yeah, that's amazing.
It is amazing. I haven't done anything for 12 years.
Honestly.
So, the fact that we've been doing this for 12 years is pretty amazing. There's 12 years worth of episodes of hearing Dr. Granpeesheh answer all kinds of questions. It's all there for you. If you go to autismnetwork.com, you can be connected to all of it, and you can search by question topic. Right. So you could put in, and we don't have this completely updated, but we regularly will update a new chunk. But you could put in, for instance, toilet training, and then it will show you all of the questions that she's answered for toilet training, because your question might be, how do you toilet train an adult? Mm-hmm. So you look at the other questions and find the one you want, and then you go directly to it. So that is available to you. But I would also tell you, if you have a topic that you don't see covered, that's why we continue to do it, because there's always another question. I don't think we're ever going to get to the end of the questions. So you can always write directly to me, Shannon at autism-live.com. But do check out everything that we have on the autismnetwork.com site. We keep updating that site to make it even more comprehensive for everybody to be able to find things. And when you're there, you can still find the old Autism-Live website by clicking on Autism Live, because it used to be that was our only hub.
Yes.
Now it's just one of the many spokes in the hub, as it were. Because we're really here at Autism Network trying to flush out, which is why there is the show Stories from the Spectrum. I don't know if you guys got a chance to see the most recent episode of that last Friday. It takes my breath away sometimes, because it is only the voices of those on the spectrum.
It's amazing.
And Dr. Granpeesheh and I serve as executive producers on that. It's not our voices on that, but it's a very proud thing. I'm proud that we have the opportunity to do that. Definitely check out last Friday's new episode, because it's brand new. Okay, I've got all kinds of things up on my screen here, but we're saying good morning to Susie. We're saying good morning to Parker. We do have a topic for today's show that we wanted to talk about. We sort of opened this can of worms last week, where we talked about biomedical intervention with autism, and we got a bunch of questions that came in this week from people about methyl B12.
Oh, okay.
So the overriding question that everybody wanted to know is, as a B12 shot the same as a methyl B12 shot? Yeah.
So the shot is generally a methyl B12 shot. So there are like 4 different types of B12 vitamin. One of them is methyl B12 or methylcobalamin. And that is the type of vitamin B12 that is the most easily absorbed by the body, because it's natural. We find it in our foods. And so that is why that's the injection that most functional medicine doctors will give you for your child. There's cyanocobalamin, which is what you usually find in vitamins, and that is not easily absorbable. In fact, it has to change 2 times until it becomes like methyl B12 so your body can absorb it. So, which is funny, because that's what we take as vitamins, you know? So that's different. And there's 2 other types as well. I don't remember their names right now, but the methyl B12 is the most readily absorbable by your body. It is the injection. And of course, all B12, the function of it is to help your methylation, which then helps your detoxification. It gives you energy, which basically means that it is working on your metabolism and helping you detox and so on and so forth. So generally when you get injectable B12, it's methyl B12.
I'm so glad that we asked you this question because I was told that the ones that you get just from the regular pediatrician weren't the methyl B12. So I'm glad that you're saying that the injectable is, it might be worth it to just ask to make sure.
You could also have other types of, like I think you can get injections of cyanocobalamin as well. But for our kids,
what you want is the methyl.
What you want and what functional medicine physicians will give you is methyl B12 because it's very easy to absorb.
Yeah. But I think the key to what you just said was functional medicine.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, especially now hearing you say that, when you go to a regular pediatrician, what you get.
A regular pediatrician,
like just your run-of-the-mill on the street.
I'm not sure they would give you injections.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah.
So anyway, but what you want is methyl.
Methyl B12.
That's the thing that you want. Okay, cool. Parker had a question. Oh, he says, I'll ask my question in a few, but I see the star notification. If people give you stars, I hope that the money used by buying stars is used for the production costs or other things. I don't know, I didn't know that the stars were costing money. I will tell you that recently, as in the last 24 hours, Autism Network started a Patreon account so that, because people have asked us, can we donate to what you guys are doing? Because you guys know that we're out on our own and you like the cause. And so there is a Patreon account and you can donate money. I know that there's something new on Facebook about giving stars, but I'm not aware of any of that money coming to us, Parker. So before you do that, let us do a little research on that. Yeah. And thank you for bringing that up because I didn't know that the stars cost money. So I'm going to ask about questions. Oh, Traven added it. So does that money come to us, Traven? It does come to us.
All right.
So there we go. Okay, so there you go. Now Traven has told me I don't know, and so there we are. Because I wasn't aware of that.
And to answer the question, Parker, any money that we raise for Autism Live goes straight to everything that goes into these productions.
Yep.
So whether it is the production or the duplication, putting it on social media, making it available, all of that money goes straight to that.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for asking that. We did have a question that came in that I wanted to get to. Hi, how can I help my middle schooler that gets relentlessly teased by classmates?
Ugh.
The school knows and is trying their best and has a strict bullying policy. It's mostly verbal. Some throwing snow in his face and laughing. He is such a target. Sometimes he can handle it, but other time he gets so upset it leads to throwing chairs and desks. He walks away, tries comebacks, self-talk to boost confidence, anything to reduce the size of his target, but it's getting worse.
Yeah,
what else can
okay.
we try, or can I help him with better coping skills, question mark?
Yeah, that's just not okay. I
okay.
hate that kind of stuff. So, if I was that parent, I would ask the school, I would demand that the school give me a one-to-one aide at least during recess.
Yes.
And so that my child was never left alone, so that they would never be subjected to bullying. In the classroom, I suppose the teacher and aide would be responsible for that, but I would hold the school accountable for even one instance of bullying can traumatize your child and can have a lot of damaging effects for a long time. So I would be very, very adamant about getting a one-to-one aide who shadows your child and who protects him and reprimands the other children and prevents this from happening. At the same time, a lot of what we do in ABA, we can teach your child kind of solutions or, what he should do when he is bullied, but my preference is to prevent the bullying altogether.
Absolutely. I want to say, too, that, it's one of those days that I wish Bonnie Yates was with us. But I can tell you, and we've got a whole playlist of Know Your Rights with Bonnie Yates, but and there are several times that she's answered questions about this kind of harassment. The law is on your side, and the school knows that. And I agree with Dr. Granpeesheh that you really have to put the pressure on the school. It's not acceptable. And you need to start documenting everything. It may be time to pull in an advocate or a lawyer to go with you. There is a thing where you write a letter of harassment. Now, a lawyer is going to be able to help you to know whether it's just a letter of harassment, which is a bad thing for the school and will go on their record, and that will sharply focus them in fixing it, right? Because they're going to owe you money when all is said and done. But there is a secondary thing that, depending on the way the harassment is happening, it might be a letter of disability harassment, which is 7 times bigger. So you definitely want that to stop.
Yeah.
And the school has to take responsibility, whether, do whatever you have to do so that it doesn't happen.
Yep.
But I will say it's a perfect opportunity for us to talk about how to help our kids, because in a perfect world there would be no harassment, but that isn't the case. And there are a couple of things that you have taught me over the years that helped my son and have helped other kids that I know. One of them was that you enlightened us to the fact that it's harder for kids to be harassed when they're not by themselves. And as you just said, the aid, but other kids too, other peers.
Yep.
And that by connecting him with even one other kid in the classroom reduces because bullies are chickens.
Yep.
And they won't go up against a crowd.
Right.
So if kids have some way that they connect, we've heard of older kids, the parents starting a club. I can think of one parent that started a graphic arts club for the high school, and then all these other kids came in because that was the particular interest for that kid, and other kids came in, and suddenly he had a crew,
Right.
and he couldn't be picked on. That's one way that we make our kids bully proof. But the other thing that I've learned from you over the years is that that one response, when it's just verbal, that kids who bully, they want something. It's that thing about there's something that they want.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and that having, sometimes ignoring doesn't get it all the way done, but giving the so what,
Yeah.
reaction to them
Well-
takes all the gas out of it.
Right. Yeah, that's true. But I guess like with any other behavior, bullying will have different functions.
Yes.
So the bully will be bullying someone either because they need to get attention or because that is the identity they have learned to be.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different reasons.
Well,
right?
sometimes it's status, right? That they're high, they don't want to be the lowest person on the totem pole, so they pick on your kid so that your kid is the lowest person on the totem pole, so they are not.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hate
But also, there are individuals in our society where they just don't feel good about themselves unless they
Yes.
put someone further down, and then
Exactly.
they feel better about themselves. For whatever the reasons are, and those were very good suggestions to make sure your child's not alone, and sometimes it is the right thing, but sometimes you can also fuel it by just responding to it.
That's true.
So, I think that with bullying, I think the best scenario, first of all, it's just hard for me to believe that kids are still bullying in this day and age because,
I know, but
society has become so quick to cancel people, and you would
know.
think that a bully would be canceled instantly, you know what I mean?
Right?
So I think the way to go about it, and I love your suggestion about just talking about trying to make your child kind of more popular. And there's so many ways you can do that, honestly, because, other kids, as you said, you could start a club that involves something that your child is good at. You could just invite some other kids over and do movie night at your house. You could get your kid the best technology and have them take it to school. That there's research that shows that often works. You could find one other child to do just play dates with so that they have one friend. Another really good thing, I remember a school district actually in Arizona who had done this, and it was fabulous. A bunch of moms had formed a club, and they would go school to school and do a in-service for the kids, like a training about autism. Because a lot of times, kids will do that sort of stuff. They don't understand anything about autism, and sometimes it helps if you can explain autism to them a little bit better, and then they might not, they might back off and stop being that bully.
Yeah. Here in LA, we have a program, and I don't know if it has expanded past LA, that it's called Best Buddies. And it was started by a woman who was just doing it for Shabbat at her temple. But then it grew, and basically what it does is it creates, especially in grade school and junior high, where these types of things tend to happen more, creates a group of kids who want a little bit more status and want a little bit more privilege.
Yes.
And those kids
love
then
that.
adopt another kid in their
it.
same grade
love
that
it.
maybe doesn't have friends. Other schools have a buddy bench.
They have a whole buddy program.
Right.
Where,
And there's a
older
buddy
kids
bench.
are your buddy,
Yep.
I love that.
Right, and the buddy bench is for reset, and this is easy for your school to do, because a lot of times schools go, well, we're trying, but we don't really know what to do, which is the same as you're not doing anything. But they can create a buddy bench, and anytime somebody is feeling like they don't really have, or something bad has happened or whatever, or they feel floaty, like they're going to float away because nobody is connected to them, they can go sit on the buddy bench, so it's nonverbal. And then other kids are trained, when you see somebody sitting on the buddy bench, it's an opportunity for you to go over and be their buddy and be compassionate.
What a great idea. I love that.
Right?
I love that. What a beautiful scenario.
So this school of yours needs to get their act together, or you need to sue them from 68 Ways from Sunday. And I know people go, oh, I don't like being litigious and whatever, but the truth of the matter is that some people will not do their jobs until you force them and penalize them by making them pay. And if you have to be the person who does that, let me just say, you'll do a service for every parent and every child who comes later, because they will carefully make sure that they never get sued again.
Right, right.
I get hepped up.
I do too. I hate that. I can't believe it still exists. It's unbelievable.
And it does. I think it's just as bad. In schools say, well, we have an anti-bully policy, and then something happens, and often what they'll say to the parent is, well, we're handling it.
Yeah.
And you don't get to know why. Well, we can't disclose their personal information.
Yeah.
And no, you can't know who the child is or talk to their parents, which I think is BS. I also suggest finding out and talking to the other parents. But, but I'm a loose cannon.
No, I mean, I think if you know that your child is being bullied and who they are being bullied by, I would definitely wait after school and talk to the parents as well.
Yeah.
I would.
Yeah. Absolutely. Okay. Happy New Year to my favorite duo. It's Taryn from Louisiana again with the 3.5-year-old. I'm wondering if all autistic individuals struggle with academics. My boy is still in full-time ABA program and will be for as long as we can keep him in there, but wondering for the future, is school harder for our kids? And thank you so much. Thank you, Taryn.
Nice to hear from you, Taryn.
Yes.
No, so it varies. So for some kids, some aspects of school are harder. For other kids, school is the easiest. So I have had kids where their academic status is so high that it kind of pulls everyone to them socially as well. And then I've had kids where some aspect of school is very hard. So, for example, there are children who have a difficult time, a lot of kids have a difficult time with things like listening comprehension, or, abstract concepts like reading paragraphs and being able to summarize them or explain a story, book reports, those types of things. That tends to be an area of difficulty for some kids. And some other children have a really hard time with math. On the other hand, I have kids who are brilliant with math as well. So I think it really varies. And if your child is having a particular difficult time with some aspect of school, I would want to figure out if you have a good teacher, first of all, because, sometimes our kids are the ones that are the quiet ones. They're not the squeaky wheels. And so they get left behind and no one is giving them assistance. So that is probably the first place I'd go, is like get an observation going so you can see actually what's going on. Sometimes if you're there, things might not be quite as the same as as if you were not there. You might want to have a friend do an observation. And then you also will want to make sure that you ask for accommodations in the IEP, because that's the whole purpose of IEPs, right? Is that they are individualized for your child. So you can be in regular ed and still have an IEP that helps accommodate for your child. So like, for instance, maybe your child needs to have an idea of what is going to be taught the next day. So that would be sent home with them. Maybe your child, and you could then prepare them a little bit. Maybe your child needs more time on tests or those types of things, or even accommodated homework. Like maybe your child takes a longer time doing homework, so they should reduce the amount of homework for your child, that kind of stuff. And accommodation, I mean, you guys, one of the things I'm really passionate about is making sure our kids are successful when they go to school. So whatever aid they need, whether it's another person, additional time, practice, books, worksheets, regular conversation with the teacher making modifications for the child, rewarding them, putting them in the front, getting their attention, getting another child to help your child, whatever it might be. I'm all about helping our kids be successful in school. It's a big part of their lives, and it will affect their ego, you know, how they feel about themselves.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I would really focus on making things a little bit better there.
Yeah, I feel like our kids, when they go to school, it's almost like they're the test for the school, because if all things are working well, our kids swim to the
for
top.
sure,
They do
100%,
amazing.
100%.
But a lot of times what your child needs will show where there's a deficit in the school. And my perfect example is Dr. Temple Grandin, that at one point she was at a private school for girls, and the girls bullied her.
Yeah.
And so she acted out and took books and threw them at the girls and got thrown out.
Yeah.
And her mom defended her and said, I'm taking her out of here because they were mad at Temple for throwing the books, right? And she says they called her the R word. And so she threw books at them.
Right.
And the mom was like, good, you should have thrown a book at them.
Yeah.
You know? But then mom took her and put her in a different school, and the science teacher got her.
Yeah.
And the science teacher said, hey, and turned her on to things that she's become this wonderful professional who teaches the next generation of how to handle livestock. So it really comes down to, are they taking, so, you know, you're going to do all the things that Dr. Granpeesheh said so that you make sure that your child is having that level of experience. And if they aren't, it's the school's fault.
There's something going on, yeah, for sure. I mean, I've had kids where from one year to the next, their whole life changed because their teacher changed.
Yep.
And it only had to do with having a teacher that really paid attention and wanted to learn and figure you out and give you the things you need. And remember, there's nothing different about this. Every child needs to have things they're good at, as well as things that are a little bit harder, but things that are good at that will motivate them to keep going. Yeah. So this is very, very important that your child doesn't feel like they're failing at everything.
Absolutely. I want to address, because a couple of people wrote in about things we were already talking about. Parker said a former ABA therapist of mine started a program called Project Outreach in the Gulf Coast. It basically helps neurotypical kids and special needs kids know how to be friends, and that, you know, he would love to see that person on the show sometime. Send me their name, Parker, and I'll reach out. Joe Honey wrote in and said that about looking at the Ask Dr. Doreen questions. She says, it's so funny, my first 2 posts did come up. She searched her question and they came up.
Cool.
The previous 12 years of episodes were sent from God when we were lost in our diagnosis. And now I've come to the next stage of our son's life. Thank you all. She also said, you mentioned methyl B12 shots. How do you know when your kid needs them?
You need to actually go see a functional medicine physician and get some blood tests done. And, you know, now the easiest way to find those physicians is to go on MedMaps. Do you know what they're
.org.
Is it just medmaps.org?
Medmaps.org.
Yeah.
Yep.
And you'll see a list of physicians across the country who have been trained by that organization. A lot of these folks were originally kind of the DAN group of physicians, and then it changed leadership, and their training changed a little bit. But this is functional medicine. And functional medicine is more about trying to find things that will help our system, our body, fix itself, as opposed to just kind of giving regular medication that will reduce the symptoms of something.
Yeah.
So, and when you work with functional medicine doctors, they will do a lot of testing, a lot. They'll do blood tests or urine and stool tests, I would say like every couple of months. And I know it's a hassle, but that's the only way to know how your body is reacting to things that are given to it.
Absolutely. We have Parker's question. He says, I'm nervous as all can be.
Oh.
I'm planning on going to a Santa Performers Conference / convention in Gatlinburg in April. I'm nervous because this event happens every 2 years, and I will most likely be the only person on the spectrum. I never went to an in-person conference before. My mother and stepdad are worried since they can't come to the convention center with me. I didn't register yet due to this. I need advice from Dr. Doreen and Shannon on this. This might help others on going to Comic-Cons and similar things. I'm excited for you.
Great. Yeah, me too, Parker. I'm very proud of you. First of all, you're a maverick. You do these things, and I love that. We always have to push ourselves to do things, I feel like, that are a little bit frightening, right? Because we learn when we do those things.
Yes.
So conferences and convention rooms, there's a couple of convention centers. There's a few things you can do to kind of prepare yourself. So I don't know where maybe you live close to this place. I would go and check out the venue, right? Go look at the venue before the conference. Convention centers are huge. They're very, very big. And when I go to a convention center, when I go to a conference at a convention center, one of the things that I get nervous about is knowing where to go, because there's a lot of signs and there's a lot of rooms and they're not always well placed and you have to look for it and you might be late and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
So the more familiar, like several times now I've spoken at conferences that occur at Anaheim Convention Center, which is also huge, but I don't have any anxiety when I go there because I kind of know it very well now. So if you know the convention center a little bit, it'll help reduce your anxiety. Just figure out where things are. Where's the bathroom? Where can I get a glass of water or a break? Where are the different, how is it situated? Are the A levels on this floor, B court, what is the convention center like? That helps. The other thing is, just look at some videos of previous, of this particular convention or conference online. And and see what kind of programming there is and where different people go and that sort of thing. The more familiar you are with the experience, the better it is. So, that will really help you. And then the third suggestion I can give is, worst case scenario, you go there and you are overwhelmed by some aspect of it. Give yourself some ideas ahead of time of what you will do if you get anxious, if you start to panic, if the noise level is too high, if you feel lost. Write down for yourself solutions before you're experiencing the anxiety. If I feel I'm lost, I'm going to find someone from an information desk, or someone wearing a uniform. You'll know that because you'll look at a prior conference and you'll be able to tell what that is. If I feel like I'm suffocating and I'm having a panic attack, I will go outside, find a bench, and sit down and do my breathing exercises. You'll know where you can go because you will have gone there and figured it out. Or I'll go get a glass of water in this location. Those types of things will really help prepare you for this, and then go for it and just keep telling yourself, be proud. Don't be nervous about being the only one on the spectrum. Be proud. You're setting a path for others to follow, and what a great thing to be a leader in that sense.
Absolutely. And it's funny, all the things that you talked about, those are all things that I do at a conference.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of the things that I always do is I always look for, is there any person that I know here that at all. And sometimes there isn't. But a lot of times I go to the resource fair because usually at conventions there's like vendors. And I will go to the resource fair to see if there's anybody I know there. Like I'm friends with the woman who owns the company, passed the big BCBA exam.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Totally outside of autism, we're friends.
Right.
And so I know that if I need to, I can put my purse there, or I can go there and sit down, or I can have a glass of water, I can hide there.
Right.
If if I'm like, oh, I feel weird, I don't really know anybody here, I can go hide in her booth.
Right.
You know what I mean? So if there's anybody because obviously this is a group of people you've had conversations with in a group. So if there's anybody you know that has a booth, that's something I do. Now,
and also, Parker, just to finish up on what Shannon was saying, so remember that we all feel this way. You're not the only one. We all go into these events feeling anxious and a little bit scared, and we all do these same things. So, if you feel like, oh my God, everybody's looking at me, trust me, everyone else feels that way as well.
Yes, we're all feeling that.
We're all feeling that.
Yes. Now, Johanny had written in and said, Dr. Doreen, my 10-year-old son was just reevaluated as required by our insurance, and we were just given an added diagnosis of dysgraphia and ADD. My concern is with the dysgraphia. The doctor said it is in his processing mentally and that handwriting and technical aids are just one piece. It is a cause of his comprehension issues. Everything I search talks about that only. We are waiting for the complete report. We had a face-to-face to review the results, and we'll have the written report next week. What do you recommend? Who are we supposed to see? Therapy, support, and thank you in advance.
Sure. So I would not be that concerned about that. We've had children who have dysgraphia, and they learn to overcome it, just like any other kind of motor deficit, right? So I think you do have therapy, and your team of therapists can certainly focus on this aspect. And you break it down essentially, and you will look at the motor functioning aspect of it, if there's any level of dyslexia involved in it, because sometimes it is difficult to differentiate between the two. And if there's any level of comprehension. I mean, you named some of the stuff here, Johanny, and it's basically the same as any other aspect of what you have already been through with the symptoms of autism. Break them down. The name doesn't matter. Break down the skill that is weak and strengthen it. And have your ABA team work on it and focus on it until they are able to get your child to a level where he's functioning like other kids. The ADD is difficult to give a diagnosis of ADD on its own. Essentially, that means the ADHD, but not the hyperactive type. Right, so it means the inattentive type of attention deficit people usually refer to as ADD. They shouldn't, because the name is no longer ADD, it is ADHD, and then there's 3 types. So there's the hyperactive type, the inattentive type, and the combined type. So my assumption is that someone is giving you a diagnosis and saying your child has a difficult time paying attention, but they're not hyperactive. So that's the one I would focus on more, honestly, because that has to do with being able to, and that'll help the mental processing aspect of things that you're worried about as well, which is, it's more about all the things you can do to improve attention. And now we're talking about things like sustained attention. So that means paying attention to something for a period of time that's longer than what we're comfortable with. So that you shape up gradually, right? And you can start with topics that the child is interested in, and then gradually increase the duration of time and ask questions about it. And then you can work on topics that the child's not interested in, and you'll see that's a much lower baseline. Usually we don't pay attention to things we're not interested in, and try to increase that gradually and reward it. Then there's like divided attention, which basically means that I am watching TV and there's something going on in the kitchen, and I should be able to continue to watch TV, but kind of have an idea of what's going on in the kitchen as well. So when someone asks me questions about it, I can say, yeah, this is what's happening here, and I also know that so-and-so is in the kitchen doing something. I think they're cooking. Like you should be able to have that. And then you also want to have the ability to set shift. We've talked about set shifting quite a bit. And this is the ability to go back and forth between multiple different things. Like here on this show, we go back and forth. We change the subject based on the questions that come, but that's all one thing, right? It's one form of thing. Now, if I was trying, so that's one form of set shifting, because I have to stop thinking about Parker's question and then pay attention to Johanni's question, and then that is a form of set shifting. But the more kind of difficult form of set shifting is being able to switch between two different modalities of our brain functioning, right? So as I've mentioned before, a good way to test this is having your child go, like you take a piece of paper and you write out on the paper A, B, C, D, E, that kind of thing, and then also scatter 1, 2, 3, 4 numbers, right? And then you ask your child to go from 1 to A, to draw a line, 1A, 2B, 3C. That's a very hard exercise, and that's something that you can practice with your child if they have a difficult time with it. That helps a lot with set shifting. Another thing that you can do is this test called Stroop, which is kind of interesting, and whoever did this testing can also administer that test, which is, a lot of you may have seen, it's the test that gives you colors, the names of colors, but in different colors. So in other words, first you'll have the words blue, yellow, green, red, and the blue is written in blue, the yellow is written in yellow, the word green is written in green, and so on. And then as you go down the lines, those change. So now you have a blue written in red, yellow written in green, and so on. And now you ask the child, tell me the colors, or read the colors. Those types of things help us control what we are paying attention to. Another really good way to do this is those things where you have a whole page of stuff. What is it called? Find Waldo.
Oh, word search?
No, word searches help too.
The ones where it's where's Waldo?
Where's Waldo, right. Where you have to find something. That helps sustain attention too, because you have to keep looking at something in detail. Those types of mind activities really help with attention. Tracking an object and being able to indicate that you see the object as it moves is also an exercise. There's a lot of exercises. You can actually look these up. What are some exercises that will help attention? And there's tons of them
There's
online.
games that you can get, apps that are games for this. Suyan, we have a couple of questions about potty training, but Suyan asked the first one. Hi, my 3-year-old son starts to pee in the potty 100% whenever I bring him to the bathroom. However, he doesn't say I need to poop or I want to pee because they're working on communication skills. Do I need to wait until his communication is better, or is it okay to start the potty training?
No, start the potty training, definitely, and give him a non-verbal form of communicating with you, if that might be faster. For instance, a picture exchange communication system, just a picture of him going to the potty, and you can put this picture, you can copy it, have one in every room of the house, and start when you are taking your child to the bathroom, first have him come and grab this picture, give it to you, and then you go to the bathroom together. So he starts to associate the picture to the activity, and the picture starts to become a form of request, demand. And in fact, while they're working on communication, I would definitely get a PECS system going anyway, because a lot of times it takes longer for verbal communication. Now, I'm assuming they're working on vocal communication, I don't know, but if there's a PECS system in place, great, put the potty in there. If there isn't, start a PECS system.
And you've already started to answer both the other questions that we had. Somebody wrote in and said, I started to potty train a child at the age between 1.5 and 2.5, up until now. The child is about to be 5 later on this year, and it's on and off. I've done everything I can, and it's being destroyed. I'm about to give up. can't go for more than what it needs to be. But then somebody else had written a question about, I was wondering if expressive language comes after receptive. My son's receptive language is exploding. So you kind of address both of these things. Do you want to do the receptive?
Expressive thing is important. We'll talk about that in a minute.
Okay.
This other issue, I feel really bad for you. I understand it's very, very hard to work on potty training and not succeed, and it's worse for your child because now it's like 4 years of trying to work on this thing. So go make it easy. Look at it this way. Start from as if you're not from the very beginning, but make it easy. And all you want to do is, it's so weird. Today I had a feeling when I was coming here that there would be questions on potty training. I don't know why, it just popped into my head. So, make it so that going to the bathroom receives a huge amount of reward, and make it so that your child has fewer opportunities to fail. Okay, so by that, what I mean is you take your child on a schedule, sort of like the previous question was saying. Keep them on a schedule that is successful for them. That could be 15 minutes, that could be 30, that could be an hour. And I'm so sorry because it's very hard to do this after that many years. I understand. Yeah. Do not put them in diapers the rest of the time, because when children are in diapers or pull-ups, they kind of feel like they're being given permission to go in the diaper. So don't do that. Give them regular underwear. Or they have the thick underwear, but it's not like diaper material, right? And just follow the procedures to the T, which essentially means that initially you are spending more time on the toilet, and as the child succeeds, you then let them go free, you're running around, having a great time, rewarding, throwing a party. And then you bring them back. Remember, the schedule is the most important thing when you're doing potty training, and fading the schedule gradually is very, very important. So, go back. We've done a lot of programs on potty training. Search for that on YouTube, and you'll see tons of not only my show, but others that we've brought on to talk about toilet training. And follow it to the T so that you don't make mistakes and so that it's successful.
There you go.
Now,
so
the
Dark Angel's
expressive-receptive issue.
Yes.
The expressive-receptive issue is very interesting. So there's an actual disorder in the book called mixed receptive expressive disorder. Okay. So that's kind of an important thing to differentiate. Most of the time, receptive precedes, it comes before expressive. Mm-hmm. There are cases where the expressive is just, blossoming, and eventually the child's receptive catches up. Mm-hmm. But I would make sure to tag the receptive and try to pull it along if you can.
No, it's the receptive that's exploding.
Okay.
They're excited because the receptive...
If the receptive is exploding, fabulous. It usually comes before expressive and you're good to go. And that's the normal way that it should happen. And for our viewers, receptive is when I tell you to do something and you do it. That means you are understanding the language. It doesn't require you to vocalize. It just requires you to understand. That means you're receiving vocal information. Expressive means you are now vocalizing. You're expressing yourself. And usually, in 99% of the cases, receptive comes first. And that's neurotypical learning as well. So when I tell you, touch your nose, wave bye-bye, all the stuff that we do, it comes before the child being able to say nose.
And it's an exciting time when the expressive is exploding. That's a good sign. The receptive,
Yes. It's a wonderful time. Congratulations. Enjoy it. Tag it to the expressive. So the way that you tag it is that you'll say, touch your nose, and the child will go like this, and you say, what is it? Because you've just now said the word nose. They'll say nose. So when you tag them together, you start to kind of use the receptive to prompt the expressive answer.
Wonderful. So earlier, I've been saying Johanny for 12 years, and you said Johanny, and now I need to know which one it is, because I've been saying it for 12 years. So write and tell us, how do you pronounce your name? And forgive me for saying it wrong for 12 years. But they said, I think I found a doc that I want to use for via telehealth from Taka. Great. They said no med maps locally, and our local pediatrician hasn't been very helpful at all. Thanks. That's a very typical song. Not that there's anything wrong with your local pediatrician, but they do not have time to go down the research rabbit hole like these MedMaps doctors do. They just they don't have time to do that. So and I think one of the the pandemic was terrible, and we've had all these things happen as a result of it. But one good thing that came out of it was the telehealth laws changed across states. So now you can have a MedMaps doctor in Texas and you live in New York.
That's true.
Or, and you can connect with them.
It's true. And this particular type of doctor, they don't really need to do a lot of physical evaluation. I mean, I have a functional medicine doctor. I've never met her in person, ever. And I Zoom in with them pretty frequently, once every couple of months, and they make a lot of their decisions based on your testing. So.
Yes, and generally they will ask you to pair with someone who can, they can say, we need these tests ordered
They just
locally.
order it for you, and you go to a Quest.
Okay, well that's even better. I also want to thank you, Johanny or Johanny, whichever you are, because I love that she wrote and said, you got this, Parker, plan and conquer. Parker wants us to know that he doesn't live near the convention center, but that he will call the conference center and get a map or a floor plan.
Awesome.
Woohoo.
And Joannie wrote in and say it's actually Joannie.
Joannie. So neither one of us had it right.
Right.
I'm like all these years, Joannie, okay. And my local pediatrician said we had no documentation about GFCF, DF diets. Okay, well, it's as long as they're responsive to you for everything else and they're good and you trust them. I actually switched our pediatrician when we started doing a biomedical intervention because I needed somebody who was going to be responsive and not think that I had gone completely off the rails and would listen to me. Because I think having your pediatrician listen to you is pretty much up there in terms of, things that we would prize in them. And I love that my pediatrician, he would call me and ask me questions. He said another parent asked me this question. What should I go read? And I loved that.
Absolutely.
I miss him. I mean, my son doesn't need a pediatrician anymore, but I actually miss
People
him.
who actually want to learn.
And the other thing I liked about my pediatrician was, and that I switched because my son got a flu in the middle of the night, and we couldn't get a hold of anybody. And we went to urgent care, and I told the story last week about how nobody would help us there either. But our newer pediatrician, this was how many years ago, but they kept all of their patient files on, it was like a suitcase, right, that they would switch between the partners. It was on an iPad that someone responsible always had 24
access.
hours a day. So when you called into the answering service, they would forward that to whichever pediatrician had the suitcase, and they would call back and they would have my child's full thing there. And they could call orders into the hospital, or one time we were on the way to the emergency room, they called the emergency room and said, my patient is on the way. Here's what you need to know. You gotta love that, right?
So I know we only have a couple of minutes. I just wanted to, because something that you and I have been talking about, which is we love, of course, having the live show and able to answer questions on the live show, and so that usually indicates on our viewings that this is a very popular time frame for people to watch the show, right? It's like 9 to 11 a.m. or so that people are on our shows. But I wanted to ask our viewers, and maybe you guys can write in to Shannon or anywhere so that we can, what are the, even for people who listen to the podcast later, we're looking to understand what is the best time for you to either download, or like when do you download and listen to the show? If you're not on the live shows, what is the time that you download this show or podcast and listen to it? Is it, 4 o'clock in the afternoon? Is it 6 o'clock in the evening? Just throw that back at us.
I love that. And especially tell us what time zone you're in so that we can factor that in. Because I know many of you have written to us from Australia and said, You'd love to watch the live show, but that would mean getting up in the middle of the night.
Right.
So if time were not a factor, and there's a reason why, which we'll tell you soon, if time were not a factor, when would you want us to be live?
Right.
When would be the ideal for you? But tell us your time zone so that we know how to do that. You can write in here on this, or I would love it if you would email me, Shannon@autism-live.com, and let us know. We kind of need to know as soon as possible.
That'd be great. Yeah.
It would be fantastic to know. All right, I think we're officially out of time, but I just want to thank you
Always.
for
It's
all that
such a
you
pleasure.
do. No, I mean sincerely. You're amazing,
Thank you,
and I
Shannon. You
love
are amazing.
I love to get to be here with you and know that you are putting that message out there to people who are listening and need it. It's just such a privilege.
Thank you so
such
much,
a
Shannon.
privilege.
Believe me, I feel the same.
But
About
anyway,
you.
thank you guys for being the amazing people that you are, however you identify, whether you're the person on the spectrum or you are the parent. We just really appreciate being a part of your lives and being on this journey with you. We're going to be back tomorrow with another Autism Live show. Our guests tomorrow are the two gentlemen from Spectrum Laboratories. They're here and they've got some big news about things that they've done in 2022, part of which we were a part of, and things that they've got coming up in 2023. We're also going to do the jargon of the day tomorrow. On Thursday, we are going to air the episode that we didn't get to air last week of Let's Talk Movies. And don't forget, on Friday, you can watch that new episode that premiered on last Friday, Stories from the Spectrum. There's some really good stuff in there. I hope you guys tune in to watch that and support that podcast. It's a burgeoning, and more people are finding it, but it needs eyeballs on it, and share it because people need to know about it, and then we can be having more stories to tell. So we'll be back tomorrow. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too. Bye-bye for now.
Bye, everyone.
Don't forget, you can watch Ask Dr. Doreen live every Tuesday morning at 10 a.m. Pacific time. We hope to see you there.